Live from the Ballz Visual Radio studios, this is the Blades on Ballz show. And now, here's your host, the voice of South African rugby himself, Hugh Bladen. Hugh, it's over to you.
Thanks. We're live on Ballz Radio, and I've got Syd with me and Simon Hill, but Sydney here would like to say hello.
Hello, Andre, how are you, my bud?
Sydney, how are you, brother?
I'm fine, my man. Can't complain, eh?
Good.
Andre, quite obviously, you know, a few things about Saturday's semi-final. First of all, the Jochen Visser incident. And I've just said quite rightly, Craig penalised Jochen Visser for jumping up and touching the ball when he was sitting on the bench. Can you just confirm that for us?
Yeah, that's a very unique, people may think it's a unique incident, something that we've been grappling with a long time. I make no bones about it that people, I must be careful with my words now, but that certain people coach even the ball boys to do exactly what Jurgen did, meaning that if they kick the ball, you guys let it go because we might want to throw it in quickly. But hell, if we kick the ball, you make sure you touch it so that they can't throw it in quickly. So there's a bit of sportsmanship being played next to the field. Jurgen was on the bench. He saw the ball. He jumped up, played the ball away from the Brumbies player who clearly wanted to play the ball.
Yeah.
And perhaps wanted to effect a quick throw-in.
Yeah.
By law, Jurgen is lucky. He could have been dealt with harsher right there on the bench, because the team extends not only to the players on the field but also those on the bench, and he could have been carded right there and then. But interesting, and we are just happy that that incident happened so that people are aware of it, and players and coaches, because we as referees have been aware of it for a very long time, and there's a hell of a lot of sportsmanship being displayed all over the world, which obviously is not right.
Yeah. Andre, you know, Craig has come in for a little bit of criticism in terms of one or two of his decisions that he's made. What is the modus operandi, let's say, on a Monday morning? Do you, as the referees association, go through the game with a fine-tooth comb?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a program called AMS, Athletic Measurement System, whereby all these incidents are being put on the air. In fact, 20 minutes after the game, Craig would be able to connect and see all incidents that's been highlighted regarding his game. I've got in front of me Yaku's game for Friday night, that very important Kings-Lions game, and we've got here timeline 9 minutes 36 seconds error, penalty kick against Lions for not releasing compared to turnover allowed, King's tackler at previous phase. Then there's another timeline at the 20th minute, 23rd minute, 25th minute, and goes on. And we go from errors to non-decision errors. We don't actually call correct errors because we are correct decisions, because we expect referees to make correct decisions. And then it's summed up by decision making and change of behavior. Was he able to change negative behavior by players? Was he not? He's being criticized in this game. I'm being a little bit transparent about the yellow card against the Lions for repeated infringement, whereas the Kings had put in 3 dangerous tackles and they weren't carded. So yes, that's with a fine tooth comb. But before this report comes, the referee actually puts his self-review in as well.
Yeah.
And then the two gel, and there's normally 80-90% synchronization between what the referee himself says and what the assessor saw in the game, because you can only be pregnant or half or not pregnant. You can't be half pregnant.
and you just answered my question, Andre. Said because those 3 hard tackles, and I mean, you know, it just wasn't on. I thought that was a bit far-fetched, and then Dylan Des Fountain sent off for the yellow card. I don't even know.
Yeah.
That was my question. And also one more question from me before Blades comes back is, the player not rolling away. I mean, it's so difficult sometimes. There was a situation, I think it was Friday night or Saturday, but one of the players rolled away and then the ball was out, but he still penalised him for not rolling away. And I just can't work that
Yeah,
out.
well, in that instance, the referee obviously decided that the guy, although he belatedly rolled away, he had an influence in the quickness of the ball exit.
Slowing the ball
I
down.
actually do want to share something that I know, Sydney, you with your great sense of humor will enjoy,
Yes,
but I want to send a message out to the listeners.
Yes.
My wife said to me on Saturday, but that bloke can't roll away. And I said, you know what, I've refereed 1.5 million games in my life.
Yeah.
And I've seen so many times players not being able to roll away.
Yes.
Listen carefully now, from the opposition ball. But I've never seen a player lying on his own ball and saying he can't get away. Have you noticed that?
Point taken.
Yes.
It's
Just something to think about, mate.
Andre, the other thing is, I'd say, do you ever hear a winning side criticize the referee?
Exactly. And I mean, yeah, we had this weekend, we had 2 major games. A one-off game, Lions and Kings down in PE, which we've never had anything like this in my 30 years in rugby. This is unheard of. Yaku said he's never seen the expression in people's faces like he saw on Friday night in that change room. He says normally teams are motivated, they want to win. He says, but this was more a, my goodness, if we lose, we're dead kind of expression.
Yeah,
We've had that game. And Yaku came in for criticism. We've worked through his report. He's made 3 basically big errors in the game. I wish I only made 3 errors when I refereed. Craig Joubert on Saturday left a very important game, 23-20 or 25-23, whatever the end result was, 3 points difference.
Yeah.
He's being criticized. Nothing is new. Nothing is new. People leave referees out until they get to the playoffs, then it's the referee's fault.
Yeah.
And it won't change, not whilst I'm alive.
And the Bulls handling mistakes, 14 of them.
Yeah.
How many? There are 2 stats I want to talk to you about. The one, some years ago, you said to me the number of times sides score from lineouts formed from penalties on the 5-meter line. What was the percentage?
Okay, that percentage when you and I had I think we had tea together when we had this discussion, Blades.
Oh,
But
definitely.
anyway, absolutely.
Eliminates.
Knowing the 2 of us. We said that there's only 15% tries being scored from the corners at that stage. In other words, so out of every 100 lineouts, they'll only score 15 times.
Yeah, that's quite a point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is a low stat, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so.
It is low, yeah.
Yeah.
So Duvalt's decision to kick for the corner was wrong.
I hear that, and you know, opinions are like noses. Each and every one has one, so you're not special in having an opinion. But in this case, my opinion is, I think he did the right thing. I think he wanted to pin the Brumbies down there, which they did. And what people forget is if they took that very first kick to the post, and let's say Mornay nailed it, then the Bulls would have been 4 points ahead. But with 15 minutes to play, they wouldn't have got those other 2 and 3 penalties because the game changes. They would be back in their 22, receiving a kick. The whole game changes. You can't say that they've missed it 3 times. They've
No,
missed
that's
it
right.
once.
I've made that point already this morning. The other thing is that the Brumbies were really effective from the kickoffs.
Right from the start.
You know,
They
right
were
from
really
the
good.
very start, they were effective from the kickoffs. And that must have been in
100% correct.
Dierwold's mind as well. Andre, now this new scrum law, it's now crouch, bind, set.
Correct. Yeah, we've had 5 rounds, therefore many Currie Cup First Division games with that. And I don't want to get ahead of myself, but the stats show an immense decrease in the resets and an even bigger decrease in penalties. Although the penalties, Bali Swart, our scrum coach, just came through this morning, he's not happy with the referee simply resetting when players should actually be penalized, meaning that they clearly and obviously aren't binding correctly or haven't got the spines in line or whatever. But the early indications looks or seems to be positive. less resets, less penalties, which is exactly what everybody wants.
Yeah,
and
sure.
You can add to that better accuracy by referees, because the guys now need to push when the ball comes in. So you're now back to technique. You're now back to a strong scrummager rather than a guy who hits in early, like the old Cobra Cup, if I can translate that into Afrikaans. Rugby has evolved into that the last 10, 20 years, or 10, 15 years, where the team that beat the gun was the stronger in the scrums rather than the man with the best technique. So hopefully, good scrummages like in the old days would now come to the fore and would be better than the opposition players.
Yeah, right. So there was one situation on Saturday when it looked like the Deon Greyling packing on the loosehead side was binding, and in fact the tight head, who was Ben Robinson, his jersey had sort of come loose. So instead of binding up high, he was sort of holding on to this loose jersey.
Yeah, he's holding on to the shoulder.
Is that penalizable? Is it, I mean...
No, that clip specifically where he pulled open Ben Alexander's and exposed his side and his stomach, and it actually showed that number 1 had a pretty good six-pack. Have you ever seen a six-pack on a number 3 or a number 1?
Not really.
I was quite amazed. But anyway, I'm off the point. No, Ben bound on Deon's upper arm. In fact, he was on the elbow, which is totally illegal. He's got to be on the body like Deon was on his body.
Yeah.
If the jersey slips, it's not a problem, but stay on the side or on the back of the body. Never grab the arm.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things that Juba wants to do over and fix and correct this weekend. Is the binding of the props. It was just not good, and that causes that side of the scrum to kink in.
Yeah.
And then the loosehead's got no choice but to follow that tight head, and inevitably, more often than not, the number 1 would be penalized for pushing in, whereas the problem is number 3 not binding correctly from the word go.
Yeah. The other thing is, Andre, is with the modern jerseys, I mean, they're damn difficult to bind onto.
Yeah, they are, but with this new bind law, there's actually a time where they can actually bind before they go into the engage. Whereas currently, or can I just say recently in the past, because it's now over, for all South African rugby going forward will now have the new scrum engagement call. In the past, you had to go in with 800 kilograms behind you and grab, and you get one go to grab that jersey, and if you don't, you're in trouble. Now you'll be standing up, no pressure behind you. You can really grab and re-grab and really get a good grip on that shirt before you need to set. So I foresee that as not being a problem, the tightness and the smoothness of the shirts with the new sequence.
So now, Andre, will those laws be applied in the in the Four Nations Championship?
Yes, absolutely. In the Four Nations, in all rugby that you've seen so far, it started in this country under 19s, under 20s, and the First Division Currie Cup, and in 2 weeks' time in the Currie Cup Premier.
So from
and
now
it's
on
now
in.
worldwide. So that's what we'll see.
From now on in.
That's right, 100%.
Okay, Andre, I know you're a very busy man on a Monday morning because you've got not only these games but countless club and other provincial games, and Mondays is probably the worst time to phone you. But as always, thanks, really thanks very much for chatting to us, and I'm sure you've answered a lot of the listeners' questions. Thanks, Andre.
Andre, one question from
Only a
Sid.
pleasure.
Why don't we ever
Yes,
see
Eddie.
you for a cup of tea up there in the President's Suite? You know, I go there quite often, and I'd love to have a cup of tea with you.
Well, maybe this Saturday, mate. How about bumping into you
I
then?
look forward to that, Andre.
All right. You keep up the good work, you guys. Take care.
Thanks, Andre.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Cheers,
Bye. Bye.
That was the Blades on Ball show. Join the voice of South African rugby on your wireless next Monday for more unbelievable memories and banter. Until then, stay classy, like 20-year-old Glenn Morangi classy.